Okay. There was a meeting held a week or so ago in which supposedly they were going to give an opportunity for people to express their views. And it really did not happen. They spoke, and then they divided. There was a large turnout for that meeting, by the way. They divided the people into 8 tables, and there were like 8 to 10 people on a table, and at least 3 of the people were there from the library and HPD at each table. So they basically screwed the whole discussion with their people being there to make sure that nobody could speak to the whole group at large. And they have a survey they put out. And the survey has 21 questions, and it is totally skewed in favor of whatever they want to do. So I'm disappointed, not surprised, but I'm disappointed that they really did not give people an opportunity, and even the survey does not give people an opportunity to express what their views are. They have said that they have made no decision in terms of what to build, that it could be 6 stories, which they can do as of right, or it could be 13 stories, which would be a catastrophe in this neighborhood. So we want to hear from you, and we want you to be able to get an opportunity to express your concerns. There's a lot of concerns here, from parking to the infrastructure to the capacity of schools, lots of concerns here. Well, we want you to have the opportunity to express them, and then we are going to, as your representatives, going to make sure we represent your viewpoints. And if they come up with a plan, which they probably, the plan that they make will probably be sometime 6, 7, 8 months from now, probably in the summer or the fall of 26. If they come up with a plan that doesn't meet your concerns, then we're going to have to organize to fight it. Hopefully they'll be smart enough not to do that. But what they've done so far is not encouraging to me that they really want to try to come up with something that meets your. Now, there's one other thing that you should be aware of, which may work in our favor or it may not. The city obviously wants to build large high-rise housing, especially the current mayor. But the one that has the final say in it is going to be the public library system, the Brooklyn Public Library. And they want to make sure that they put an improved library. They assure us it's going to be state-of-the-art. But they could veto a plan or decide on a smaller plan if they are convinced by us and by their own people that the library will not be served by it. You can't have, in my opinion, a huge building with a library on the first floor and expect that library to be able to be effectively being a library. It's going to be affected by a lot of other issues if they build a huge building. So we want to hear from you, and we're going to take notes. I'm going to take notes, and we're going to ask. Andrew is here from my office. Senator Chan has a number of staff people here, and we're going to ask that you give us your ideas, your concerns, and then we're going to carry that forth with them. And if we need to fight, hey, I'm ready for a fight. I think Senator Chan is ready for a fight.
I love fighting. No, that's actually a burn. So before we start, right, I want to add something to the last meeting that we had. That was conducted by HPD. Those are the people that's in charge of that development, and they tell me that it's 5 to 7 years away. That's the time frame. Now, and that meeting kind of erupted in chaos because, of course, neighbors have differing opinions. So I don't want that to happen here. Please respect each other's opinions. Of course, we have people pro and people against, and people with everything in between. So everybody's gonna get their turn at avering their opinions. Please respect each other's opinions. Thank you very much. Does anybody want to hit the mic? Does anybody want to take the mic? I'll come over to you. Oh, there you go. So your name?
John.
John.
You said the library system has final say.
It's HPD. It's HPD, the people in charge charge of this particular project. Only this one.
But the agreement is that the library will not, since they own the property, they will not agree to something unless they feel that it is going to primarily improve the library. That's what their mission is supposed to be. So if the city comes up with something, there's tremendous community opposition, it may work in our favor because the library has to function. Or else the Brooklyn Public Library is abandoning its mission.
I was at the first meeting, and I spoke to John from the library system. The reason why they're doing this is because they don't have the funds to renovate the library system. So I asked if they had the funds to renovate the library, they need to build it. He said no. Is that true? Would that be true?
I'll tell you right now, I don't know what's true with these people, right? So, let's say I see where you're leading. If we raise the money, we say, here you go, the community is going to renovate this beautiful library over here, are you going to stop, right? But we have to talk about other influences that, over the next few years, that they're going to come across from the mayor's office, from HPD, from everybody else. Maybe they'll, come along and say, how about if we renovate 10 libraries and we'll build this over here, right? And so things like that are intangible. We can't see it. We don't know what's going on. So I can't promise you that they'll go for it. I see where you're going. It's a great idea, by the way, right? So, Bill, you have anything to add to that?
I think that, it is a great idea. The problem, however, is that the ones who are really pushing this big project is the city and probably the mayor. And I don't know whether we don't want to get into a bidding war between all the resources of the city and wealthy developers and, us, because they're going to win them. So we got to make our views very clear, and it's got to be clearly understood. If we don't get a plan that we can live with, we're not going to accept it. We're going to fight it.
Well, it seems to me that they put this particular spot because this library needs funds. Right? And then, I have a great idea. We build some houses and official library however we want it. So that's like a stick in the carrot, right?
Yeah.
Look, like a beach park, that big golf course, a lot of land there. There's a lot of land there. So, why here? Why here? Because the library needs money. I don't think that golf course.
The golf course is donate money to the
That's
library.
a different department altogether,
Yeah.
right? The Parks land is zoned different. They do have to get, am I correct? They do have to get the state legislature to agree to give up the parkland to build, and we're not going to do that. There's a lot of people opposition to giving up the parkland. You're right. Like a golf course, there's a lot of land there, right? So, and there's a lot of land elsewhere. I'll tell you right now, Rikers Island is 75% empty. We keep letting the bad guys out of jail, right? 75% empty. I know where they're going with that too. Okay, that is going to get developed like Roosevelt Island. That's the end game. I see it.
So you mentioned about rezoning. Yeah. Right? We have to rezone that golf course. Yeah. We have to rezone the area where they do.
They do have to rezone this too if they want to build Island 6, right?
Yeah.
They do have to rezone it, but that's not state at that point. That's not parkland. It's library land. The city council, the citywide planning commission can rezone that land.
I'm in no rush to rezone. Right? So if they want to fight, I say I don't want to rezone here, rezone there.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, right? So this is a great start, right? So we have one neighbor that I can safely say that you're not crazy about this idea of them doing this to this building, right?
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. I'm thinking, why make this place? It seems like your library needs money, do the renovations, and this developer deep pockets says, I'll help you out, but I get something in return.
Right, so to say that, why did they pick this place? Because the land is there. That's not the only place in our district that they're picking. There's a development over at Utrecht Avenue in 75th Street they presented that to me at a zoning meeting. And I told them to go back to the drawing board. That one is even worse than this. That's 13 stories, but the building is east of a bunch of other shorter story buildings. And I said, those buildings next to you are never going to see the sun ever again. And that's the first, I told them to go back to the drawing board. That's 13 stories over there on New Utrecht and 75th. No parking, no community center, no library, no anything, just apartments. So there's another one on 65th Street and McDonald Avenue, just across the street from my district, in Sam Sutton's district. That one is not too bad. The developer did a lot of work in thinking about, how to enhance it for the neighbors to make it bearable. That one is okay. It's not too bad. It's a little too tall for my taste. It's 11 stories. But he's expanding the subway station. He's expanding the sidewalks. He's building a community center. He's doing a lot of good things around the building that makes it better, right? And well, it's a different kind of building. It's not affordable housing. So yeah, to say that this is the only place they're looking at is not. They're looking at any place with a piece of land where they can build. And which is odd because last year the Stop and Shop ran out of business over at Cropsey Avenue, across the street from Home Depot. I'm like, why don't you put a homeless shelter over there? Right? And I wasn't the senator yet. And they said, well, because it's not in, Councilwoman Susan Schwang's District 43. I said, why are you so hell-bent on building it in our district? It's 3 blocks out of our district. We'll put it over there. And they refused to do it. Things that don't make sense.
It's going to be the people that can be speaking out and making sure that they don't pick those kinds of locations. I mean, we will fight very hard, and I have a clear reputation for fighting hard when something is put up that is totally inappropriate for people. And we're going to do that here if we have to. But the money is the big answer here. They want money. But it's not just money for the library. Developers are looking for much more than that, and they see the leverage being strongest against the Brooklyn Public Library because the Brooklyn Public Library is looking for money to rehabilitate libraries, and the city and the state even have not really provided it for them. But the problem is the money would go to the city, not the state. It wouldn't go to the libraries, it would go to the city, and the city would probably spend it on some of the big ideas that have been expressed in the last
All right, so here's the problem, right? Eric Adams came up to Albany last year. It's called Tin Cup Tuesday. Tin Cup, like begging, right? Here's my tin cup, can you put money in here? He asked for $120 billion last year. I had him in front of me. Bill had him in front of him. And I asked him, what are you spending this money on? You spend $750 a day per person, per homeless person, per day. $750. I said, it doesn't cost me $22,000 a month to raise my family and pay for my house, but you spend $22,000 a month on each homeless person. I said, why don't you just give them $6,000 a month, leave it, and let them be on their own? Because you know why? Because that other $17,000 is going somewhere else. Into somebody's pocket, into a company's, corporation's pocket. I'm going to stop short of saying corruption, right? But so there's our dilemma. We can tell the city, okay, we'll give you $135 billion this year. We'll approve this budget, right? $250 billion for the state. $130 billion goes to New York City. And then once they get that money, it disappears. It goes everywhere except for where it should be going. This year, right, they shorted foundation aid, the enrichment programs in the schools by $54 million, right? Where did that $54 million go? I don't know where it went. I think I have an idea. Right? It went to helping the migrants. But those are our enrichment programs that for our kids, the after school, the music, the art, that makes the kids love to go to school, and we need that. And they shorted that, and I was very unhappy. I voted no on the budget. By the way, let's take a quick survey. Who likes this idea of them putting the affordable housing building over there and taking the parking lot away? Anybody? Okay. Who is good with the idea of, let's say, 6 stories instead of 13? Anybody? Who likes the idea of just leaving it just the way it is? Okay. All right, who wants to speak? Go like this.
Yeah. My son works for the library. He started at Utrecht, now he's at Kensington Branch. And going forward, what the library wants. They already have two libraries with the housing, and they like it, and they're gonna continue, so this is not gonna stop.
The difference though is we, the people. If we can express our views very strongly, and that's what we may have to do, if they don't come up with a plan that deals with our concerns and our problems, then we're gonna oppose it. And I don't think they really want to get into a big fight with a community that is strong in opposing it. So, that may be our, ace up our sleeve.
Okay, so, of course, we wouldn't want to have this, nobody wants this, but they're hell bent on doing it, it seems like. So for number one, to address the zoning, this area is way not zoned for any kind of 11-story, it's crazy. And there's houses that are 4 stories, and they would never see the light of day. That's number one. Now, also, parking. Parking is a problem right now. Right now in the community, it's a problem. People's driveways are always being blocked, by people running to the stores and everything. You put something like that there with all these, like, I don't know how many families, that's just ridiculous.
It'd be anywhere from 75 to 300.
Well, that's crazy, because,
Each one has more than one car.
right, so we definitely, we can't take away the whole parking lot. That's just crazy.
I did tell them to go back to the drawing board last time. I said, how can you take away these parking spaces, add all these apartments with cars, and not account for the additional parking that is required? I said, go back to the drawing board and show me something nicer with parking.
And smaller.
And it can be done. It's not impossible. I mean, you can have parking on the first floor of the building. You can have it in the basement too.
They just put in electrical, pumps for the electrical, but they're just gonna tear that out, they spent like a couple of, God knows how much.
Well, that's
They're
just
just gonna-
if they have their plan.
That's sinful to do that with our money, our tax money.
People have made a suggestion that the building leave most of the parking alone and then it go as a separate building and it not be as high. They can't go as high, but they can go,
That's a compromise.
that's a possibility. But we have to demand those things. Because they're not gonna come up with it themselves. They would like a 13-story building with no parking. That's what they would like if they could get it. We've made sure they can't get that.
Well, how can a library function with so many families living
Yeah,
above that?
exactly.
They don't have the capacity.
Said earlier.
Right. So
Exactly.
that's just a few issues.
These are the things we have to, push very hard and get them to start
Next.
paying attention to.
Oh, wait a minute, I think this young lady here was wanting to speak. You already spoke.
Oh, yeah, she spoke.
Hi, hi. So,
I don't want to shake your hand. So, personally, I'm okay with adding additional housing if needed. First question I have is why? Why do they need to add housing here? Other than the library,
So what they,
funding the
we
library.
all know that New York City is crowded, we get it. There's families living together, there's tiny apartments where there's 4 or 5 people living in there, in a 1 bedroom, we get it. We need room, we need space. It's a big city, there's.
Do they have statistics to show us that we need it here?
They need it everywhere, it's not just.
There is a vacancy rate that's very, very low.
So give
But
the city.
that's a separate issue.
Another separate issue is, I'm going to protest this on Thursday, by the way. The city is very unfriendly to the landlords. We have warehouses, the landlords have warehouses. 250,000 apartments.
Including tens of thousands from NYCHA. So even the city is warehousing, leaving apartments vacant.
That can be available if the city would just allow the landlords to make a living. That's the problem. I'm sure there's a lot of homeowners here, right, small homeowners, you know how hard it is, right? So now we just pulled it up by the way. We voted in the mayor that has never been a small homeowner, never had children, never been a worker, a union worker.
That brings me to my next question. Adams is out, right? We know this is all his doing. Funding the library was his doing also. Have you guys had a discussion with Matami?
No, because we already know that he is going to go ahead It might be Bill, that might be me.
We might be able to stop it or change it.
The other question you had,
He is
though-
he is from a community like ours, so he might be more open to versus, Adams is not from the community.
we are certainly going to be raising that with him and trying to convince him.
We are gonna see him in committee in Albany, February, March? February. I am going to have Mayor Mamdani in front of me where I get to ask him questions, and I will. He can. I was just talking to this young lady over here, and I said, Donald Lieber came up, the chairman of the MTA came up to Albany and asked us for $65 billion over 5 years. Remember that?
Yeah.
And I asked him, that's $33 million a day. I'm pretty good at math, right? I said, $33 million a day you want to operate the MTA. I said, do you even charge anybody any fares? And if you charge everybody full fare, that's $9 million a day from 3 million riders. So you're telling me that $9 million is not enough to operate the MTA, that you need another $33 million from the state each day for the next 5 years to operate the MTA. Those are ridiculous numbers. I called for his resignation. I think you did too, Bill, I'm not sure. I called for it, I held a press conference, told him to step down. He's the highest paid official in New York State at $500,000 a year, and he can't even break even, no less turn a profit. He's losing money. He keeps digging a hole for the MTA every day that we have to pay for it. And a lot of us don't even ride the trains. We're paying for it. We're paying for it through our taxes, through congestion pricing. So the MTA, that's a pipe dream. That's a pipe dream. We need to charge people money to ride it, however little, right? Maybe you think if they charge $1 per ride, is everybody going to pay their fares? The answer is no. The MTA spent, $8 million to study why people don't pay their fares. I said, give me $50, Mr. Lieber. I'll tell you why, because you don't do anything about it. Because we don't lock people up like I used to do when I was a young officer. Anybody else?
Hello. A couple of years ago, I had the opportunity to speak with James Odo, a former city councilman. I was concerned about, in general, I felt it was the overdevelopment of this neighborhood in general. Old frame houses knocked down, and three apartments replaced with 9 apartments. And he told me at the time that the city government considers this area underdeveloped population. Can you talk about that?
So the way I understand it right now, it's near impossible right now to go to the Department of Buildings to get a permit to build a one-family house in this neighborhood. Am I correct to say that?
I think it is very difficult, but
Yeah. They'll give it, right? But the property taxes are ridiculous. You can't even build a one-family house because they don't want it. The city doesn't want
But
it.
also, one-family houses, developers won't build, builders won't build, because they don't make enough money. And that, is the second issue, because when you build a one-family house, you want to have a price that you can make a profit on, and the builders can't make profits so easily, unless the price of the house is very, very high. But, the issue with this library is not going to be a question of, you can build on that lot 6 families, 6 stories. That's the law right now. We got to make sure that they don't try to put 13 stories, or 12 stories, or 11 stories. And if they want to do that, what are their plans to improve the infrastructure? We don't have enough school spaces to fit 13 stories of families. We don't have enough sewer pipes to serve the needs of 13 stories of families. So it's an issue that whether you think it's overdeveloped or underdeveloped, you can't do it preserving quality of life unless you do all those facilities, those capital improvements. And they're not going to do that. It's not going to happen.
And I have a follow-up question. If we allow it to go through the normal legal process, who has to weigh in? Is it just the city or the state have to transport?
It's basically the city. The city has to approve it, the permits for it, and the opening of it. And unfortunately, and I was against these, but unfortunately, the voters just passed in the last election. resolutions that basically made it very difficult to stop building these things. It basically exempted many of the requirements for building it. Now, they're saying at this point that they still are going to have to follow those regulations for this project. I don't know if they're going to say that 3 years from now or 2 years from now. You know, they say one thing and then they change it. But whatever the regulations are, we have the power to stop it. And we're going to have to exercise that power and make sure that they listen to what we, the people, say. Because I'm going to be listening to what you say, and I'm going to be fighting as hard as I can. And I know Senator Chen is going to be listening and fighting as hard as he can. We are not going to allow it to happen unless they meet our concerns and the problems they're going to cause us if they do it.
I want to know what exactly we are at the stage. Is it that for sure that they're going to build?
No,
So if
they were planning to. They're saying that they're asking people's opinions, although they really aren't asking. They're going through the motions of asking, and they're saying that they will listen to what people's opinions are, and then they will make a decision, and that the first priority of that decision is going to be, does the project substantially improve the library at New Utrecht? That they will veto anything that does not improve the conditions, the quality of the library. Now that's a good statement for them to make, but we've got to make sure that they follow it, and that it does not, in following it, they do not hurt the quality of life of this neighborhood.
without a parking lot, and the school is already packed as it is, and the schools can't even do the smaller size reduction right now with the mayor's, with the city demands. So school is overpacked, and the train is packed with people. Every time you go in, it's all packed. And how are we gonna get through all this and be improving?
My personal opinion is, we're not going to be able to do it with a 13-story building. So we have to reduce the number of families that are going to be in that. Can we do it, with a 5 or 6-story building? Maybe. I don't know. We got to see. Those are questions they have to answer to our satisfaction.
Who's gonna be living in those?
And what is affordable housing? What is the number? How much rent is affordable?
I believe it comes to 1/3 of a family's income.
And that number actually is pretty high, right? Because to qualify for affordable housing, the income threshold is actually pretty high. So those affordable housing isn't really that affordable. It's, yeah, for like a 2-bedroom is in the 2000s. Yeah, but that's not a bad thing, right? So yeah. Right, and don't forget the subway station. I did mention that last time when they showed us the plan. They showed us this beautiful plan. I said, did you make any provisions for this train station over here to modify it, to accommodate the extra riders that you're going to have? I said, no. I said, well, go back to the drawing board. Right, so, by the way, I want to take one again. There's some late people came in, right? Some late comers. Again, I'm going to ask this question one more time. And I want to take a picture to show HPD what the neighbors think. How many people want that library to stay in the parking lot, to stay just the way it is? By a show of hands, please.
Keep them up, please. Keep them up.
That's the question. How many people, who here wants that library to stay just the way it is? We love it just the way it is.
Senator, can you verbalize it again on videotape?
Oh, okay. Who here love our library and wants that library to stay just the way it is? Please raise your hand. And the parking lot. We love our neighborhood, and that's the way we like it. Thank you, everyone. So now, anybody else who would love to see that 13-story building? Please raise your hand. Who is willing to compromise on something smaller? Let's say 5 or 6 stories. Please raise your hand. With a parking lot. Yeah. Anybody else wants to speak? Hold on, coming. Can you state your name so we know who you are, ma'am? I'm sorry. I'm gonna ask every speaker to just say your name.
Hi, I'm Jennifer. I lived in the area actually my entire life. So I think that one of yes, I'm an architect. Sorry. Yes, so I'm actually an architect. I do work on affordable housing in higher end, I would say, or higher income neighborhoods. So I think that one of the misleading items about these diagrams that they don't show is actually what is usually allowed by rights for every site. So this is the beginning of what's called the ULURP process, which Councilman Colvin was touching upon. That was part of the vote last year, actually in November. So ULURP allows every community member to have a voice on zoning a site. So this site is actually part of a qualifying site, which means that it's only allowed to be up to 55 feet tall. And the presentation shows that they're trying to do buildings that are between 95 and 145 feet, which is at least double. And also it's in the greater transit zone. So what that means is that this site is actually not required to provide any parking at all. So that's something to consider. Even if they say they will, they don't have to. It's close to the train station. As many people have mentioned, there is only one train that passes by here. We're very fortunate that we do have express buses that go into the city, but this is also not an express stop, right? So there's just going to be an overload on the transit. And I know that we're in the middle of trying to get funding, like I think it's $1 billion to try to improve the train. I don't know when that's going to happen. This might be a little bit of a situation of the chicken coming before the egg. And also another concern that Councilman Colton touched upon. Sorry, Councilman, touched upon was the spacing for schooling. So last year there was an article in the New York Post. You know that we have free universal pre-K 3, and actually we were listed as the worst neighborhood in New York City. In terms of the waiting list, there were 632 applicants trying to get, I think it was, there's 232 seats, and there's 632 kids trying to get seats for the pre-K program. So I just am worried that we don't have the amenities to support these kind of buildings. And also, the previous proposal for the library, I think the cost estimate was, I don't want to misspeak, it was a little under $2 million. I think it was 1.9 million. And these buildings conservatively can be around $80 million. So that's all I have to say.
The facts,
Thank you, Jennifer.
to be looked at carefully, because even with, the education, there is definitely a great gap between the number of seats and the number of children who are. We need to get into that. But even more so, under the new law that was passed reducing class size, there's going to be even more classrooms that are going to be necessary, and this is going to be adding to that crisis on top of it. So there's a lot of problems here. That's why if we strongly, state our concerns and our issues, I believe we can get the library to pay attention. The developers are going to build as much as they can because they make more money by doing that. But the library does have a vested interest in making sure the library is able to function, because that's their vested interest. So there may be a discrepancy here that they may not even see yet. As I think you pointed out, what the plans say, what the realities are, there's a big divergence.
Yeah, and I think also another point is like growing up here, before this school was built in the schoolyard, there were many of us that had these school trailers because their class size was just so large. So I'm just worried that we're just not going further and
do have a little bit of good news, right? So, a few years ago, long before I was a senator, I was just a measly PTA president and a schools volunteer of PS 112. And on New Utrecht and 72nd Street, right, they approved the zoning for a 13-story building over there to the dismay of the neighbors. We didn't like it. We protested, we fought, we argued. I'm happy to report that that particular lot, the site of the former Greenpoint Savings Bank and Capital One Savings Bank, is now owned by the New York Schools Authority, and they do have plans to build a school over there. And there is another school going up where we got the COVID shots on 14th Avenue and 63rd Street, right there, that empty lot. That building's going up right there, and that's going to be a school. So yeah, we do know there's a high demand for schools. We need schools. There's 2 schools, charter schools and Ceplo. They're sharing a school. So Success Academy and Ceplo are sharing one building. So we do know there is a huge demand. You know what I'd love to see? I would love to see a school over here. A library, right? 4 or 5 stories, 6 stories, no problem. Build a school. Build a nice school, right? I'm an advocate for education. Did anybody else want to speak? Oh, hold on. One more question from Joanne.
Parking lot, once again. Isn't that, it's a question for you, like, who is in charge of it? Isn't that the Department of Transportation?
It's actually right now the library system, because they own the property. It's being used as a parking lot.
The
But they own
DOT,
the
no?
property.
Also, the library owns the
Yeah.
parking lot.
Yes. And it also
Alexander?
should be remembered that the parking lot not only is going to affect residents, but if people, there's businesses on 18th Avenue, there's businesses on Cropsey Avenue, Bath Avenue, Benson. If the parking spots are not there, that means those businesses, small businesses that are struggling right now, are going to struggle even further. So it's a very legitimate concern, the number of parking spots. And although right now they are not legally required to put parking spots into a building when they build it, previously they were required to put a minimum number of parking spots. And basically that was given up as a concession to builders who encourage more building. But, we can certainly negotiate, having parking spots in the building or some of the parking lot being left intact.
Hello everyone, I'm Alexandra. I am currently a student and I frequent the library to do my research. So I would pose a question to Senator, maybe he would know more about this. Where would the students go while, if God forbid, the renovation does start? Where would they want the students to go and study and request their study materials? Is the library going to stay open?
No, they made no provision for the students to go anywhere else, but there are a number of other libraries in our neighborhood. There's one over on 13th Avenue and 83rd Street. There's High Lawn Library, so I know they're out of the way. It's not local, but they made no provision for that.
So clearly they have not, now they've left it very vague. They're saying that they will provide alternate library services, either by keeping the library open while work is going on, or by finding another location. But there's nothing specific about that. And that's certainly something that has to be discussed and worked out.
We could use that as our fighting tool, but there's lots of kids that are going to college and they need that space. And I come in and it's full with students, and the second floor is for kids, young kids, and that section is full with toddlers, and they're playing, they use that space. There's a lot of toddlers out there.
And that's the other issue too, because this current suggestion is that the library will only be on one floor. It may need a second floor in order to be able to continue even the functions that it has right now. So that could be an issue. That has to be improved. If this is going to be a state-of-the-art library, then they're going to have to maybe use more than one floor.
You have a comment from Vincent?
Assemblyman, you mentioned earlier, merchants have been kind of locked out of this process. As I say, benefit from the people parking and businesses. Do you have any fines or any, because the meeting we had 2 weeks ago just totally excluded input.
I think that merchants certainly should be given input, and we have to make sure that happens. One of the things we did when we fought the homeless shelter on Bath Avenue and Kings Highway, and in the fight now on 86th Street, we won the first two, and we're doing well in this last one because we involved the merchants. The merchants realized that if those buildings were opened up as a homeless shelter, that their businesses would be seriously hurt. And so we have to reach out to the merchants, along 18th Avenue, along Bath Avenue, along 86th Street, and let them know that this is happening. We can organize an effective voice to make our voices heard, but we have to do it, and that's why we're starting now, getting your opinions. This is a project, may not, come to an end for 4 or 5 years, but we have to start right away mobilizing people, not to stop it initially, because at this point there's nothing to stop, but to make sure they come up with something we can accept. And if they don't come up with something we can accept, then we're going to have to stop it. And they have to know that.
Thank you, Will. Bill, over here. My name's Quan. I'm trying to figure out what the tallest building is in that area. I feel like Bensonhurst Rehabilitation Center is about 8 stories tall, right? So I feel 85 feet, right? So I feel like 8 stories is not that bad, as long as it's like we have prior building there that's just as tall, right? My thing is everything that Jennifer mentioned and everything that 18th Avenue is already crowded. This is like with remote work in this environment. When I go back to work, I don't think 18th Avenue is going to survive onslaught of all these people that's over here. But my thing is 150 families, maybe 90 families, will probably help the neighborhood businesses. It's a very walkable neighborhood. I don't remember the last time I needed parking. I just walk around, right? And to integrate these new families, I think the plan should include a loitering place, some kind of green space for the community to get in and for them to integrate as a community. One final thing is, if the library is not funded now, what makes them think they're going to get funded after this? They're going to sell their land? Are they collecting rent on it? What additional funding are they going to get?
Probably going to try to work out an agreement with the developer.
They're probably going to try to work out an agreement with the developer whereby the developer will support in some way the library. But again, there's a lot of vague promises and statements. We don't know the details. And we have to know those details before we're going to accept such a thing coming into the neighborhood. And, infrastructure needs, school needs, transportation needs, parking needs. These are all very valid issues. And yes, we can discuss with them putting some green features into this, a parkland, some parks in there, something for the children. We need to discuss that, and that has to be made clear before this community is going to sign off on anything like that. Yes, so these things have to be considered. So we're going to be talking about that as this thing goes along, but we're going to have to make sure that all these things that you're raising, are put on the record and are going to be demanded answers to before a plan is finalized and accepted by us. And if they can't come up with the answers, then our ultimate course of resource is to oppose the plan and maybe delay it even further.
Good evening. Hello, good evening, everyone. Hi, good evening, everyone. I've been living in this community for 45 years. Long time. I use this library, a nice library, very good. The staff members very friendly. I said, I want this book, they give to me right away. I don't have to wait so long. Very good. How about the women? Now, how it is? Don't do anything, change anything. The community member told me that I don't even know they're going to build a high building over there. Why? They don't even know what's going on. They asked me, I said, I don't want to give you the wrong information. I don't know. So far, the developer, the city government, never tell us what to do, what's going on. It's possible, there's a Colton senator, it's in the future, short future, the developer, the city government, have a whole more community meeting. Let us to talk, communicate. Let us know what's going on. This lady mentioned it before. I used to come to the library. I turned around and around. I couldn't even find a parking space. I'm telling you the truth. If you put up 390 homes here in the future, how can you park your car? You turn around and finally you have to go home. Okay? Don't come here. Okay. In the future, I hope Mr. Colton and Senator set a committee or something, a petition to the developer, to the city government. We don't want this building here. Please look for another location. Thank you very much.
All right, this is kind of like the start of doing that, because we as a community, they say they're going to listen to us, but they have to understand that if they don't listen to us, we are not going to support the project. We're going to oppose it. Now, what that means and how much pressure we're going to have to, raise, we'll find that out, in the future. But right now, from the very beginning, we're making it clear that we are going to have a voice in this, and we're not going to simply have everybody broken up into 8 tables and talk quietly with city officials, city workers. We are going to express our views. This is too important to allow it to just be quietly put through with a lot of question marks, because that's what there are right now, a lot of question marks. And that's not acceptable. Hopefully they will, and hopefully the library will play a big role in it. Now, I will say that there are some major problems with the library according to what they're saying. They're saying that there's asbestos possibly in it. They're saying there's a problem with the roof and maybe the boiler. So they claim that there's serious issues and they don't have the money to repair them. So supposedly that's, why they're choosing this location. But they have to make sure they meet the concerns of all the people in the community. We are not going to accept something that's going to mean that police response time is going to go up because there's a lot more people. We're not going to accept something that means we're going to have leaks in our basements because the sewer lines are not adequate to meet the additional people. We're not going to have situations where the schools, our children don't have seats because there's a higher capacity because of this project and other projects that they're building. So we are going to speak up very clearly, and I am going to make sure that I completely, and Senator Chan is going to make sure that he completely lets everybody know what the constituents in this area are worried about, and that those issues must be addressed if they expect any support from this kind of a proposal.
Yeah? Is that my vote?
Well, when we build these affordable houses, like right now, we are throwing in questions, right? Let's say, we build a 6-story or whatever number of stories that maybe we can get on, but affordable housing, do the local residents get a priority into the pool? Do they get to, let's say my daughter is going to be living on her own in 5 years, and then will she be able to move into these apartments? And my disabled parents who can't climb the stairs, will they be able to get into this elevator building and be
They
able
will
to
say yes, but the real answer is no.
like Bill said, you know what? Great, we need housing in our neighborhood. We have a lot of people here. But there's a lot of people that need affordable housing, right? And so why don't you give priority to the people that are already here in the neighborhood, that already fit into the neighborhood, that have their friends and family in the neighborhood. They said, okay, we'll make it 25% preference. 25% of the apartments will go to the people of, not the district, but that particular zip code. And then somewhere along the way, somebody sued, and the city lost that one, and it's down to 12%. 12% preference out of 10 apartments, out of 12 apartments, there'll be one that's given preference to the people living in the zip code, and that's just not fair. I would love it. I would, you know what? If they say, hey, you know what? Let's give preference to the people that live in this zip code. I would say, great. You know what? Let's build it. Right? People love it because our friends, our family, ourselves, we can live in those apartments. We need them. They're nice apartments. Right? But you know, the problem is they're bringing in people from everywhere else except here. So we have another question here from John.
Going back to the libraries now. There is a library, I don't know if you know of it, on 64th Street. 60th Street and 17th Avenue. You know that?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, it's still under renovation over a year now, and I don't know what's going on. I asked them, they don't know. They don't know. People
renovated not long ago before that, like not more than a decade ago.
maybe, yeah. But I lived there all my life, and I don't know what's going on. I wish they would reopen, but I don't know. Maybe you might know something about it.
Okay, Bill, do you know anything about that? That library is actually not in my district, but I know from living over there, from going to and from work all the time through there, I know that library in the last 35 years that I've been living on Bay Ridge Avenue has been renovated about 100 times.
And it's also not in my district, but I do know that these renovations can go on for a long, long time because they start doing something and then they discover another problem, and now the contractor says, I wasn't hired to deal with that problem, or you got asbestos, you got to hire a contractor, and it goes on and on. The New Utrecht Library also, a few years ago, was supposed to be renovated. And they had problems again with the contractor because they found things that they said is not my responsibility, and you haven't hired me to fix that. So this happens very often in these contracts, and what makes it so bad is that children, whether they be college graduate students, undergraduate, high school students, elementary grade students, depend upon the library for their learning. And when it gets closed because of a construction, it's a big problem. So we have to, we have to make them, we got to know how long this thing is going to go on. Exactly.
And I'll tell you right now, as a PTA president, I worked in 2 schools over here. IS 187, Kristen McAuliffe, and PS 112. Both my daughters attended both schools, and I was a volunteer in both schools over a period of 10 years. And I'm telling you right now, I know for a fact that when they say, we're going to point the bricks in this building, in this school, and it's going to last 2 years, you can count on 4. That's how it works. Anybody else? Ken Sen, the PTA president of McKinley Junior High School.
Steve, I think a lot of people attended the last meeting at the library, and I was there, and I asked a question, I answered the question, so, not really a question, but, I am going to imagine you own that plot of land. You own that land, the land owned by the city. I'm the developer. I want to come to you and say, Steve, how about this zoning deal? You're going to transfer the land to me for maybe $0, $10, way less than market value. I'm going to build a brand new building here. I'm going to put a brand new library here. And you're going to take the library, but you have to pay me rent. Does it make sense? I own the building now.
Is that what
That's, I asked that question, they couldn't answer.
They couldn't answer, they couldn't
No.
tell you whether that's in fact what's happening.
Right. So this city is effectively giving away the entire plot of land to the developer for free. Zero.
But it's not
Right?
impossible, I can see that you would.
And
you have to make sure.
I will build a building there, like even new library, but you still have to pay rent. If you own that land, will you do that? No way. You gotta be really stupid to do that.
We have to make sure that does not happen. That in any kind of a presentation they make, they have to submit it to the community, and that question has to be answered before we decide whether we're gonna support it.
The only thing that I got out of that meeting was I was under the impression that HPD was actually going to take control of that land.
It's possible, that might be the plan.
HPD.
For the developer is also possible, that's where we have to be wary of, and make sure it's not a developer taking ownership. Because if you're the owner of the property, then you may decide to raise the rent. And the
Exactly.
library may decide to move out.
Right, right. We don't want to give away that plot of land because we are all citizens here, right? We all pay taxes. We are part of the city, and I am a very, very small owner of that land too. I have a say, right? It's owned by the city. Now, my second question, the next question that I have is looking at the picture that they sent to us. If they are going to put, I don't know, 400 families in here, right? Average household 45 per family. We're talking 2,000 people. If you're gonna ask me, hey Ken, do you want to share your library with 2,000 people? I said, hell no. Not every day. 10 maybe. Not every day. 2,000. No. No way. They're gonna be friends.
You know, there's always the chance that, this is the old bait and switch over. By the way, I speak fluent Cantonese. If any one of our Cantonese speaking neighbors would like to speak in Cantonese, I'd be more than happy to talk to you, either in private or openly. But by the way, you see that it says 290 to 390 homes, 400 homes, right? There's a chance they could come to you and say, hey, guess what? We're only going to build 200 homes now in hopes of you saying, yay, great. There's always that chance. Don't forget that too. Okay? So everybody should have a sense of readiness and what they're going to throw at us next, because we did. Me and Bill both told them to go back to the drawing board. Give us something else.
Steve, I just want to have. Go ahead.
Oh, I have another question. Because I think the whole system of affordable is not very fair. Because if you somehow hit the lottery, you really hit the jackpot. Because you own that apartment for generations. Right? If I have 2 kids, 3 kids, I'm going to raise my kids, they go to college, I eventually will go CTCs. They all make their own living, but they can still keep their apartment. They can keep it just because they can keep it. It's not fair for those other people who could really use an apartment. Right? So during the last meeting, I asked for, make sure you guys have retention, not forever. Nobody owns anything forever.
And then while, let's say, a $2,000 rent may seem a lot right now, or $3,000 rent, right? That's what people were saying in 1954 when they incorporated rent control. $50 for the apartment. A lot of people were making $50 a week back then. Bus drivers was making about $60 a week, and he would rent an apartment for $50 a week, and that was 1 week of pay for his apartment. But it never went up, and then it went up very little, and his grandsons are still paying $162 a week, a month for that apartment. So $2,000, 50 years from now, right? They're still paying $2,000, maybe $2,200, $2,300 for that apartment. This is the rent control of the future years, my friends. Think about that for a second, right? So now on that note, right, I just wanted to mention something else. This City Council is slotted to vote on a law on Thursday that basically controls who you are allowed to sell your home to. Did you guys hear about that? COPA. If you have a 3-family or above, when you put your house on the market, who has dibs on it?